Good morning, evening, or night. Wherever you are, welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Monday, 7th April 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. The U.S. spring home buying season is showing signs of improvement with rising housing inventory and decreasing interest rates, although affordability remains a significant hurdle for many. Amidst ongoing outbreaks, the U.S. also reported its third measles-related death. The latest fatality involved a school-aged child hospitalized with the illness since January in West Texas. In an effort to combat forced labor, the U.S. blocked sea salt imports from a South Korean salt farm, marking the first punitive action by a trade partner against slave labor on South Korean salt farms. The extensive tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump are having far-reaching effects across various sectors and global markets. He has implemented tariffs on over 100 countries, potentially harming free trade, though the full global impact may be limited by the benefits provided to many countries. Businesses and governments worldwide are analyzing the implications and considering contingency plans and retaliatory measures. Wall Street decision-makers are bracing for market chaos, drawing parallels to the 27 financial crisis. These tariffs are negatively impacting a landmark Anase emporium of sweets and threatening the economy of Kanda, Japan, a town heavily reliant on a Nissan factory that exports cars to the United States, with half of its production sent to the U.S. Due to the economic outlook being weighed down by Trump's tariffs, oil prices are declining, with U.S. crude oil falling below $60 a barrel. Even Bitcoin has fallen, showing that cryptocurrencies are subject to market fluctuations. Billionaire investor Bill Ackman warns of an economic nuclear winter and urges a 90-day timeout on tariff. Stanley Druckenmiller expressed his opposition to tariffs exceeding 10%. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick affirms the Trump administration's commitment to implementing reciprocal tariffs despite the global market sell-off. Contrary to initial expectations, the tariffs are contributing to recession fears and weakening the dollar. The White House is perceived to lack a coherent implementation plan for its tariffs, which is a precarious start for long-term policy. President Trump insists that deals depend on achieving an even trade balance. Specifically, our soybean farmers are facing uncertainty due to Trump's trade policies, raising concerns about market volatility and potential risks of tariffs and lost export. China has halted imports of U.S. LNG for the longest duration since the last trade war. British carmaker Jaguar Land Rover is halting shipments to the U.S. in response to potential 25% import tariffs, describing the U.S. as an important market. The tariffs are also projected to impact U.S. inflation and are likely to increase the cost of entertainment. The tariffs have severely impacted U.S. stocks and financial markets, with the S&P 500 declining by 17.4%, compared to a 13.7% global market decline. Dow futures are plunging as the stock market's downturn worsens. President Trump's team dismisses recession concerns, claiming that 50 countries are seeking tariff deals, and Trump stated that he does not want stocks to decline, but that sometimes you have to take medicine. Evercore EC is the latest Wall Street firm to lower its S&P 500 target. Celebrating its 50th anniversary, Microsoft has revolutionized the workplace through personal computers and cloud services, with critics suggesting that the integration of AI could further solidify the tech giant's dominance. Companies like Google, Microsoft, and IBM are showing strong interest in quantum computing, which promises breakthroughs in drug discovery and last-mile delivery, despite existing uncertainties. Elon Musk sold X, formerly Twitter, to his AI company, Say, stating that this move will combine Say's AI capabilities with X's reach, unlocking potential Used Tesla prices are declining as owners protest Elon Musk's leadership by selling their vehicles, making these Teslas more affordable. A Tesla bull has significantly reduced the stock price target by 43%, citing Elon Musk and President Trump as factors. TikTok will remain available on the App Store following assurances from Attorney General Pam Bondi to Apple, with a review period extended by 75 days. President Trump stated that China's objections to tariffs stalled the TikTok deal. Woodside is selling 40% of its Louisiana LNG project to Stonepeak. Apple iPhone price increases are now a possibility in the U.S. The rising cost of weight loss drugs like Wegovy, Ozempic, and Zepbound is causing financial strain on state Medicaid programs, with states exploring solutions to manage the budgetary impact of these medications. Hollywood is experiencing a box office success with the release of a Minecraft movie, starring Jack Black, Jason Momoa, and Sebastian Hansen. The film is surpassing all box office projections, expected to generate $157 in weekend ticket sales, providing a much-needed boost to the industry. The show, White Lotus, is experiencing increased viewership in its third season, featuring stars including Sam Nivola, Sarah Catherine Hook, and Patrick Schwarzenegger. Turning to South Korea, the U.S. blocked sea salt imports from a South Korean salt farm due to concerns about forced labor, marking the first punitive action by a trade partner against slave labor on South Korean salt farms. In Japan, President Trump's tariffs are threatening the economy of Kanda, a town reliant on a Nissan factory that exports cars to the United States, with half of its production sent to the U.S. To Lam, Vietnam's top leader, contacted President Trump after new tariffs were announced. Vietnam has strengthened its ties with the U.S., making the high tariffs a surprise. In Myanmar, 3 USAID aid workers were laid off while assisting with earthquake rescue and recovery efforts, according to a former senior staffer. Across the European Union, countries are seeking a united response to U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs. British carmaker Jaguar Land Rover is halting shipments to the U.S. in response to potential 25% import tariffs, describing the U.S. as an important market. Cargill Kitchen Solutions is recalling over 210,000 pounds of liquid egg products under the Egg Beaters and Bob Evans labels due to a bleach contamination risk. Senate Republicans, led by Senator John Thune of South Dakota, aim to make President Trump's 2017 tax cuts permanent, excluding Democrats from deciding the future of these cuts, a move Democrats may later use against them. Keir Starmer must limit appeasement of President Trump. India's stock market experienced a dramatic downturn on April 7th, with the Sensex plummeting nearly 4,000 points and the Nifty 50 dipping below 21,750. This Black Monday crash, the worst since June, was attributed to global market anxieties, escalating fears of a trade war triggered by President Donald Trump's tariffs, and growing recession concerns in the United States. The BSE Sensex and NSE Nifty both fell over 4%, wiping out 19 lakh crore in market capitalization, with mid-cap and small-cap indices plunging as much as 10%. Reliance Industries shares also saw a sharp decline, falling over 7% to a new 52-week low of Yokopani 15.555. This has prompted investors to shift away from riskier assets, with gold rates hitting their lowest levels in over 3 weeks. The Reserve Bank of India, RBI, is expected to continue its cash boost measures to address the global uncertainty. Kalyan Jewelers shares declined 3% despite a reported 37% increase in revenue growth during Q4 FY25, while Nikkei's share price decreased over 9% despite revenue growth in Q4 FY 2025. Retagio Industries' share price had a muted debut, opening at YOL 25.1 on BSE after being oversubscribed 1.86 times. The IPO aims to use proceeds for debt repayment and working capital. Experts have suggested various stocks to watch or trade, including VIP Clothing, NBCC, NFL, Lloyd's Engineering, Alembic, Tata Motors, ES Bank, and L&T. Vaishali Parekh recommends buying Zen Technologies, Pidilite Industries, and Asian Paints, while Ankush Bai and MarketSmith India have also recommended top stocks. Harsha Upadhyaya advises domestic investments, and Raja Venkatraman suggests 3 its stocks amidst us tariffs, while Ankush Bai recommends 3 FMG stocks. Air India is enhancing jet upgrades to attract passengers, and Ola's February sales included e-motorbikes not yet rolled out. Turning to the United States, President Trump's immigration policies, specifically concerning the H-1B visa program, are causing anxiety among Indian tech workers who depend on these visas for skilled employment. The tariffs imposed by President Trump have contributed to the slump in the Indian stock market and broader economic uncertainty. US stock futures are also indicating further sell-offs fueled by growing fears of a recession after President Donald Trump's harsher tariffs. China is preparing for a prolonged trade dispute, potentially implementing rate cuts and fiscal stimulus to mitigate tariff effects. Consumer spending in China is showing signs of recovery, supported by stimulus measures, but is still susceptible to the impact of a potential trade war with the U.S. amidst rising prices. The Chinese central bank has increased its gold reserves for the last 5 months. Tariff risks are driving demand for China bonds, motivated by their safe haven status and expectations of easier monetary policy. Due to supply concerns as Beijing retaliates in the trade conflict, soy meal prices are increasing, and there is speculation that the yuan may be devalued as the trade war escalates. As a strategic asset in the trade dispute, China is leveraging its rare earth element resources. Despite tariff concerns, analysts predict that China's technology sector will remain strong, continuing to benefit from rising interest in AI. WHAM predicts that flying taxis may become a practical means of transport in Chinese cities within 3 years. Concerns over trade tensions are fueling a sell-off in Asia-Pacific markets led by Chinese stocks, with the Hang Seng Index falling 10.37% and the SII 300 declining 6.31%. Well, Xi Jinping has a plan to alleviate the impact of tariffs. Turning to the United States, President Trump has extended the deadline for the sale of TikTok, a Chinese video app popular with 170 million U.S. users. Trump's tariffs could provide China with an opportunity to increase domestic stimulus and strengthen ties with major trading partners. Finally, regarding the global economy, Goldman Sachs has lowered its 2025 growth forecast for Chinese stocks from 16% to 10% due to tariffs. Asia's markets are reeling from significant downturns fueled by escalating tariff and trade tensions. Asian stocks are sharply declining, marking the most substantial drop in 14 years, triggered by President Trump's tariffs. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index led regional losses, plummeting 10.37%, while mainland China's SCI 300 decreased by 6.31%. The global market downturn is attributed to the White House's firm stance on tariffs and China's retaliatory tariffs on US imports. An Asian credit gauge is signaling the highest level of concern since the early days of the pandemic. Bitcoin also experienced a plunge in Asian trading, reflecting the broader impact of the trade war on the cryptocurrency market. JP Morgan's Pang suggests the impetus for interest rate cuts in Asia is now present. Singapore's Prime Minister has voiced concerns about the potential dangers of tariffs, while the opposition has dismissed these concerns as fear-mongering. Bloomberg Daybreak. Asia reports the tariff war is entering its second week, detailing how the Asia-Pacific region is responding to reciprocal US tariffs. Following a surprise output increase, Saudi Arabia has reduced oil prices for Asian markets. Germany is navigating a challenging period marked by economic recession and political uncertainty. The nation's unemployment rate climbed to 6.33% in March, reflecting an increase of 26,000 individuals, the largest monthly rise since October 24. This figure surpasses projections made by analysts. Against this backdrop of economic instability, the Hanover Industrial Trade Fair is taking place. Furthermore, Germany is working to effectively allocate €1 trillion under the guidance of MERS. The prospect of auto tariffs, proposed by President Donald Trump, presents a substantial risk to German car manufacturers, given Germany's role as a key provider of automobiles and components to the United States, prompting the country to contemplate a robust response. This escalating trade conflict is impacting automotive equities and straining relationships with allied nations. Concurrently, the defense sector in Germany foresees expansion as European nations augment their investments in weaponry, sparking discussions regarding the possibility of transferring skilled laborers from the contracting automotive sector to positions within the defense industry. Japan's Nikkei 225 stock index has plummeted to a 1.5-year low, with banking shares leading the sharp decline. The index dropped nearly 8% following a Wall Street downturn triggered by President Trump's tariff increases and backlash from Beijing. This decline prompted a temporary halt in futures trading via a circuit breaker. Nintendo stock specifically plummeted 10% due to the tariff-induced market downturn. Intensified trade war fears are predicted to further depress Japanese stocks. Amidst this deteriorating economic outlook, Japan's nominal wages are increasing. Meanwhile, Ishiba aims to secure a broad deal with the United States regarding tariffs. Australia's stock market has plummeted to its lowest point in over a year, driven by global tariff concerns that are particularly affecting the banking and mining sectors. This market slump coincides with a decrease in the value of Australian trade-sensitive assets as overall risk aversion increases. Despite this economic uncertainty, an Australian pension fund, managing $117 billion, is actively seeking acquisition opportunities. Shifting to politics, the Australian Prime Minister is widening their lead in recent polls, potentially influenced by the ongoing tariff situation. Meanwhile, the Australian opposition has decided to drop a Trump-style policy advocating for a mandatory return to the Office for Public Servants. United Kingdom. The UK has adjusted its electric vehicle (EV) sales mandate, a decision influenced by tariffs levied by President Trump. This policy shift has directly impacted Jaguar Land Rover, the UK-based subsidiary of Tata Motors, which has announced a temporary halt to exports to the United States. The U.S. market is considered strategically important for JLR, making the export pause a significant development. The market reacted swiftly to the news, with Tata Motors' share price falling by more than 10% following the announcement. This showcases the interconnectedness of global trade policies and their immediate effects on major multinational corporations. France's fintech sector is booming, as Pennylane, an accounting software startup, saw its valuation double to $2.20 billion following investment from Alphabet's venture capital arm. The company raised €75 million in a funding round led by Sequoia Capital. In other news, France is actively working to mend diplomatic ties with Algeria after a period of strained relations. Europe is bracing for potential shifts in the global security landscape by bolstering its war readiness, necessitating a transition towards a war economy across the continent, even as European stock futures decline after a week of considerable losses. Turning to Turkey, the arrest of Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu by President Erdogan has sent shockwaves through the nation's economy. The Turkish stock market and currency have both experienced sharp declines, prompting President Erdogan to implement urgent measures to stabilize the financial system. In Nigeria, the once vibrant textile market is facing significant challenges due to a surge of inexpensive imports from China. This influx has raised concerns about the long-term viability and potential recovery of the Nigerian textile industry. Meanwhile, in Brazil, the head of the central bank has convened meetings with leading bankers amid growing worries about the stability of a major lender. Shifting focus to South Korea, the Yonhap news agency has announced that the upcoming presidential election will be held on June 3rd. In Romania, all signs point to a steady hold on interest rates as tariffs amplify existing economic vulnerabilities, as suggested by a decision guide. Regarding Ukraine, the reassurances force currently in place may require either a substantial expansion or a complete reassessment of its purpose and effectiveness. Finally, Vietnam should have foreseen the impact of tariffs on its economy. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.